So let me introduce our panellists. So we have Andrew Kneebone here, who's our Head of Innovation for Visy Business Services. We've got Trent Innes, who's the Managing Director of Xero, and Craig Dower, the CEO of Salmat. Take a seat. So to kick it off, we are going to get to live questions. I feel like I'm a long way from you guys over here. I'm going to shuffle over a little. So as we kick off, actually, I don't think I could introduce these guys better than they could themselves. So I'm going to ask each of them to do a bit of an intro. Once they've done that, I've got a few of my own questions that I'm going to use to kick off the conversation. But we also have the opportunity, this is where we're going to get interactive. So we're going to see if you've got questions. We've got some roving mics that we'll be passing around, but don't wait for the mic. If you can see this link here, we actually have a link that you can go to. So just, if you can see that, I hope we're not all blocking it there for you, or you can see it up here. You can put that link into your browser, preferably a Chrome browser, but it'll work on any. And you can actually start entering some of your own questions. Alrighty, so everyone's got the link? Let's go. Who wants to kick off? Craig, why don't we start with you?
What am I doing?
You're giving us your intro.
Oh, my intro. Oh, does this work? Yep, you can hear me? You can hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Craig Dower. I'm the CEO of Salmat. Salmat is one of Australia's largest marketing services companies. We're about 37, 38 years old, and we're in sort of year 2 of a 3-year transformation of our business. We help our customers make the transition from the physical to the digital. And we've been working with Google for the last year or so, and they've been a really important partner in helping transform our business. I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that a bit further on. So, yeah,
great.
Good to be here.
Thank you. Trent.
And imagine following Guy Kawasaki on stage as well.
Absolutely.
I was actually about to say the same thing. That's a very, very tough act to follow. That was a fantastic presentation. Well done, Guy. Trent Innes, Managing Director of Xero here in Australia. So for those of you who don't know Xero, we're coming up to 10 years old, so created back in 2006 out of New Zealand. And what Xero is all about is building a small business cloud-based accounting solution for the small business industry. Back in 2006, when we started out, we were a very small team back then. There was literally 2 people around a table. We're now 1,500 people around the world, and we've got customers in over 180 countries around the world. So very high growth, puts a lot of pressure on your systems. And Google's been a really key part of our business for sort of the last 3 years now as we've grown in that 3-year period. So I'll take you a little bit through that as we go through the questions.
Great. Andrew.
Hi. Whoa, loud. Okay. Mine's working. Hi, my name's Andrew Kneebone, and I am Head of Innovation for the Visy Business Solutions Group. Those who don't know, we make packaging, a lot of it. A lot of boxes in the billions. We also make cans, PET, we also have logistics, recycling. Personally, my favourite is we actually have a waste-to-energy facility in the Northern Victoria. We take landfill and make energy out of it. I've been with the Visy for about 7 years, and part of my job is to change the company when I was brought on, which is to change a company that's very good at doing something the same. And part of that journey was realising that email needed to change, Office was broken, very hard pitch to sell, and that we needed to move to Google. So that's my little intro.
Thank you. Well, to kick off our questions, I'm going to throw straight to Craig. So Craig, what are the biggest challenges that you believe Australian businesses face today with regards to technology adoption? As someone who's so recently gone through this change yourself.
Yeah, I think it depends on what size of company you are. If you're a startup today, then it's a great place to be. You don't need to buy any servers, you don't need to own any software. Everything that you want is available in the cloud, and your ability to get a business up and running really quickly is probably better than at any time in history. If you're at the other end of the spectrum and you're a large enterprise, and we're talking about large enterprises here today, then I think one of the biggest challenges is the legacy that you have. You've invested a ton of money over many years, maybe decades, in ERP systems, accounting systems, sales and marketing systems, and so on. And the attraction, your sort of historical practice is to continue to incrementally upgrade those systems. When in fact you can be spending most of your time and effort as a company on preserving your legacy as opposed to innovating. And I think sort of Guy talked about it before. This notion that sort of perfect is the enemy of done. The Reid Hoffman quote I thought was really quite powerful. And so that sort of sits very uncomfortably within IT teams and within large enterprises. And so being able to be innovative in an environment where you've got a legacy, I think, is really challenging. And sometimes you just have to make bold decisions and burn the boats on some things as well. And we've heard a couple of examples of that this morning. John talked about it with their Google implementation. So for us, when I joined Salmat, we had done a lot of things over a decade or so. We'd made a number of acquisitions. We had a lot of customer-facing systems, and we had systematically bolted down our infrastructure piece by piece by piece to make it as secure as it could be, right down to the lowest common denominator. And then an unintended consequence of that a decade later was we couldn't get anything done. We were so glued up that we needed dramatic change. And when we looked at collaboration as a really important aspect of our business, we have operations across every major city in Australia, New Zealand, Philippines and Sri Lanka. Just getting our people to talk to each other was really difficult. And so we made what was a bold decision at the time, and I've grown up inside the Microsoft ecosystem, to shift ecosystems to the Google platform. We looked at what our customers, our partners, and the industry in which we operate, which is sort of media and digital marketing, and most of the development and innovation that was taking place in that world was happening on iOS and Android. So we sort of stepped back, took an ecosystem view, and made the leap, and it's been a fantastic decision with the benefit of hindsight. It was a bit scary at the time. And I think those sorts of things, being able to respect your legacy but understand that there may be a time where you need to draw a line in the sand and move away from it, is one of the biggest challenges that I see for major Australian enterprises.
Okay. Trent, I'm going to now go to you. If you think about some of the benefits that you've seen, just if you could share with us some of the above and beyond benefits that you've seen that were far beyond your expectations around the Google Apps product set that you haven't experienced when using other technologies.
All right, so I might start with a little bit of my background. So I mentioned before I've been at Xero for 3 years now. Before that, I actually spent quite a number of years at Microsoft. So I was well and truly wedded to the Microsoft platform. So not long after I started at Xero, I remember a notification came out saying, we're moving to Google Apps, and I broke into a cold sweat because I am literally through and through a Power Excel user, number one, and definitely a Power Outlook user at that point in time. And I thought, there's no way known I can change. Started to panic. Surely we're just moving to a cheaper system. That's what I thought to start with. It's going to be an inferior solution. What I failed to realise at that point in time, that it wasn't actually so much about the sort of the key functions that the products used to do. It was actually about the way that you work. So it's about the way that people interact with each other. So I think the biggest benefit that we unlocked as I look back at that is we actually extracted far more productivity and ideas out of our people. And the reason for that is the collaboration in real time. I didn't have my head around that. Until you've actually started seeing that working in an enterprise environment, you can't appreciate it. So we can be working on, I saw some demos earlier today, and that kind of shows a bit of it, but you have to actually get in there and do it. We can be working on a document in real time. We can all see each other working. All the ideas are coming out. We're all truly focused on solving that problem at that point in time. Whereas historically what you used to do is you'd put in a document, you'd attach it to an email, then in the email you would explain what the document was about. And I'm sure who's done that? Lots of people, I'm sure. Yep, lots of hands going up. Then you send that out. They then open that later at some point in time. They'll make some changes. They'll put track changes on. They'll send it back the other way. And time goes by, and all of a sudden, what could have been quite a simple problem that you could have solved in 10 minutes if you were collaborating together is suddenly drawn out to 24, 48 hours and beyond. That's the key thing. And the great thing is when you start doing that across boundaries, you start to get far better ideas and solve problems much quicker than you ever could have imagined.
Well, just on that thread, maybe I'll open up to all three of you if you wanted just to mention, what have been some of the greatest differentiators on the Google platform in your experience in your own organisations?
Yeah, to the point, you're absolutely correct. We had the same problem. When we pitched Google and I stood up in front of the executives, it was a bit of a hard sell. Firstly, I had to say that the problems that we're facing in our organisation, I'm sorry, the directors, you don't face it. Because it's the people that work for you that face it. You'll get the email, you'll get the final product, but you won't see how the sausage is made. Their heads just down, for days and days on end. And that simple paradigm of taking one spreadsheet, emailing it to 3 people, asking them to enter something in, emailing it back to you, and then spending the rest of the afternoon re-entering the bits that they entered in is broken. It really is. And in a modern era now with the Google Sheets, that ease of use, that simple ease of use within inside our organisation went viral. Because at the end of the day, we have a finite amount of time. It seems we get a little less every year as far as the expendable time we have. And the ability to take something that would normally take an hour, days even, because you've sent it out and you're waiting for it back. You now go, no, meeting, get in, everyone do their bits, and you're out. And that's the biggest change. And I really expected that I have to push that quite hard. But once it got rolling, it got rolling. And we have people across the entire world with inside of Visy Industries that do that now.
Thanks.
Yeah. For us, it's been a really important part of our transformation. We had about 28 different lines of products and services, which were all sort of independent P&Ls, which would be fine in a business that was the size of GE, but we're a $500 million business. And so there's a lot of stuff in there that wasn't all that effective. We've cut that back to about 6 or 8 things that we do. But what we're most importantly trying to do is get our teams working together so we get our products and services connected and provide solutions to our customers as opposed to screaming product and service at them. And everywhere I go now, I'm just sort of doing a tour around our offices because it's end of financial year, start of a new financial year. I see teams across Sydney, Melbourne, Philippines, Sri Lanka, New Zealand collaborating on Hangouts. It's just become second nature. It's almost like we've always had the tools. It's been adopted so quickly and it's just a standard part of the way people do things now. And so, as both Andrew and Trent were saying, there's no more sort of emailing things around and waiting for information to come back. It happens real time and it happens every day across about 20 locations around Australia and Southeast Asia. It's fantastic.
Trent?
Look, I probably said most of it before. I think probably the biggest benefits are for me are the way that people interact together. I think it's the collaboration piece. It's completely changed the way that I work. So it's changed the way I work, not just internally, also externally as well. So we rely on lots of agencies, as many companies do these days, and we invite them in as well to be able to work on things together. Things, especially if you're doing things like press releases or things like that have really quick turnarounds and timelines that need to be delivered on. We can do that in real time together, and it's just completely changed the way that we do that. It reduces phone calls, it reduces all those emails. I mean, I'll admit I hate email. I find email completely unproductive. I think if most people are honest with themselves, a lot of people have lost the battle with email. So if I can collaborate and get a problem solved right there and then, it's a much better way to work.
Well, now speaking of real time, I'm going to jump into our live Q&A, which I can see there's quite a few questions coming in here. So the first one's for you, Andrew. This one's got lots of votes coming in. So what are the keys to getting user acceptance in a mature environment to the Google interface away from the Microsoft experience? Right.
Okay, so there's a number of answers for that. Let's say hypothetically it's a microcosm, as in a bunch of people. I always have the saying, don't work the process, work the result. Often people will say, no, I need to do this because this, and then I get that. Go, no. Your result is what you're after. If you change the process and build efficiencies, well, then you can do that. And then be vigilant about that. And what we find, especially when moving to Google, a lot of people would say, oh, I can't use Google Sheets. Why not? Put it back on them. And so that was one of the areas of bringing change. Other points which we'd use is to be open and honest and give people the opportunity to vent. And we would do that, especially in the migration period. We would have open mic sessions where we would bring people in and say, tell us the reasons why we can't do this, because we need your help. And then you take them one by one, and then say, well, actually, you can. This is the reason why, here, and here. And then be open and honest. If there's something that you can't get a win straight away, own it, park it, and then progress on that and get back to them with updates. And that was our method we used to get adoption across Visy Industries.
You've actually preempted one of the next popular questions on my list here, which is, there is a lot of science and methodology we can utilise to help our big companies to innovate, but how best do we go about shifting the mindset so our people are open to new ways of thinking, doing, innovating? Maybe if Craig or Trent, if you've got a perspective on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. I think people want to be involved in innovative companies, and the role of senior leadership is to provide the sort of vision and the tools and environment to make that happen. In our case, our team was screaming out to be working more collaboratively and just didn't have the tools to do it. One of the things that we've done, which has worked really well, and Google helped us with this through introducing us to other ecosystem partners who had already made or were in the midst of making the journey, was it's a big shift, as Trent was saying. Having grown up in a world where you do file save, folder, name, etc., to a world of seeming chaos where you just search for stuff. It's a really different way of working. So we made training mandatory, and we put a lot of change management. John was talking this morning about change management. We put a lot of time and effort into change management. And good change management at its heart is really about communicating effectively. And so I think talking about the importance of innovation and then creating an environment where people can collaborate and participate in it. And then saying there are some things that we're going to force around this. We made the decision, strongly advised by Google and some of your implementation partners, to make training mandatory, and I think that's helped. And then also drawing a line, saying we are going to burn the boats at some point. You can access these tools that you've had for 20, 30 years for a little bit longer, but at some point they're going to be turned off.
Perhaps now this next question might be a good one then. So this one's come in from Anonymous. We use these tools internally, so it's always quite interesting to see who posts with their name versus who's anonymous. Anyway, so have any of you been tempted to move the business back to Office 365 now that it's starting to mirror the collaboration thinking?
No, I haven't.
No, in fact, we a little bit like what Craig said as well. I think the first thing is, from a leadership perspective, the leaders have to lead. So you make that. If you make that decision strategically, you have to live it and breathe it from day one. I did leave the Office suite on my machine for a period of time, I'll be honest, because it was like a safety blanket. But then I found out I was clicking it less and less and less, and it actually became, because nobody else was using it, I didn't actually need it anymore anyhow. But we actually did rip the Band-Aid quite early from most of the people and removed it, which is, there's different ways of looking at change and how you do it. But the longer you drag it out, the longer it drags out. So we made the decision slightly different, because at that stage we were probably 300 or 400 odd people, and now it's grown. We're going to up over 1,500. So a different sort of a journey and a different scale. But we just made that decision and removed it, and then people embraced it and off they ran.
We've had a couple of exceptions that we've allowed. The exceptions have been rare, and they are some senior people in our finance team that have spreadsheets that have got macros that have been developed over 10 years that are basically not translatable, and some of our legal team with some of the Word documents that are infinitely complex and so on. But outside of that, there's almost no exceptions.
We had a different approach. We're not buying an Office suite, we're buying an ecosystem. That was our statement. And we went out that we use OAuth as an authentication layer for all web layers. We are moving into areas of robotics with a large partner. Things like that. So I wish I could say more, sorry. But it's an ecosystem, and we're into that. And so with App Engine as well. And so that's an investment in that, and it's beyond just the Office versus Google Docs versus Office 365. It's that. We launched Google Plus inside of our organisation as well, under the mantra that a salesperson that's informed is actually a better salesperson, and we utilise Google Plus as a method to do that, and it's actually been highly successful and viral within inside our organisation, and it assists in getting news out to all of our salespeople and staff around the categories that we serve. Dairy, beef, poultry, fish, things like that, to ensure that they're informed so they can then go into their customers and serve them better. So it's not just an Office versus Office. It's an ecosystem.
Great.
Can I say just one point to that just quickly? It also unearthed some interesting things, because part of our exception process was to show us the use case, what's going on here. And I remember one example where we had someone who was doing cutting and pasting 256,000 rows out of a database and sticking it into Excel and producing charts for a customer every month. And they were horrified at the thought of us taking away Excel. And when we looked at that, well, actually, Sheets wasn't the answer either. There was a much more sophisticated way of doing that by connecting Tableau to the database and giving them a button to push and they could do it automatically. And so you find out all these things that are happening inside your organisation that have been happening for years that don't make any sense. And so it's also a chance to sort of revisit the whole topic of innovation across the business as a whole.
Yeah. I might just pause and see, are there any questions coming live from... I've got a lot coming in here, so I can keep going, but I want to give the chance for people to jump up and ask a question. Maybe people prefer a bit of anonymity. I'm going to do. There's a lot of questions that are coming in that are sort of. I think people are really sort of wondering about, how does this actually happen? How did you make this journey? And so I'm going to ask some more of those, and then there's a few more broader innovation type questions. But let's round out this. One question is, how do you overcome the legal eagles who use risk as a wall against change? So perhaps picking up on the theme from John this morning.
What's risk? Often when you talk to people about what risk is, they'll ring fence it to the argument or the points that support their argument. It's the same with security, right? Where they'll say, oh, you can't do this because I have my copy of Excel document and I can take it with me. Yet anyone could get a USB key and walk out the door. So that was one of the first things we came up against was risk, and especially in the legal area as well. We challenged that and asked them, there's many elements that constitutes risk, and you'll never remove risk, ever. But the greatest risk is not doing anything, literally. So we talked to Google. We went, we talked security, and they thumped a big wad of paper on our desk about all the security certificates they have and what they can do for that, and we went, there. We can't do that. That's open and honest. And so we actually pushed back and said that our people to serve you, our internal customers, or the army that is Google that could serve you, I'm sorry, but we're going with them. And so that's what we use to counter those discussions about, the risk elements of actually migrating to something new.
I think you'll find every single one of those, though, whether it be risk or legal or security, it'll always come down to fear of change. It's actually, I think when we delved into it, people had said, I have to keep this. When you actually looked into it, it was about change. That's fundamentally what it was about. And it was generally about, and that's just people don't like change. So if they can embrace it and see working in a better way, you've got to give them a little push and just sort of get them there. And once you push them and they sort of get to the edge, then they're okay. But they'll always find excuses not to change.
I'd agree with that. And we took some of our people who we knew were going to be fairly hardcore around change and got them involved in our pilot program, the first phase of Google Guides. And they were, by the end of that process, most of them had become evangelists. So, because it was easy for us in a sense because we were getting a whole collaboration platform and they were getting so much more than just a replacement for Microsoft Office, and just changed the way people were able to work. So they were converted fairly easily in the end.
So this is a sort of change of topic almost. So how equipped or informed do you feel you are as a business managing and engaging with millennials, both from a people management perspective and from a marketing or products perspective? Trent, I know you've got probably a good example we were just talking about earlier.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. I've got to say, I try not to cater for them necessarily from a leadership perspective. I kind of look at the business as all. I mean, the thing about a diverse organisation is that it is diverse in its very nature. So I don't try just to cater for that particular part. And also, our end customers are small businesses, and small businesses range from startups all the way through to established small businesses. They're very diverse in their nature. So our workforce needs to be diverse to actually cater for the needs of our customers. So that's the way I tend to look at it. We use a number of tools internally to actually get feedback from our staff, and you can kind of guess sometimes where they're coming from. But I would actually say I don't from a leadership perspective try to cater for one particular group.
Well, I know when we made the decision, when we announced that we were going with Google for Work, most of our millennials had sort of been using Google Apps anyway, and so their reaction was duh. Finally you guys have caught up to speed and are joining the same planet that we've been on for the last 5 years. So from a tools perspective, we're sort of catching up with them in a sense. We'd hire perfectly smart graduates out of university and give them an XP desktop and Microsoft Office 2003, I think we were running at the time, and completely constrain how they worked. So this has been a terrific thing for them. Yeah.
For us, it's just harnessing the passion and energy. My God, they've got a lot. And just making sure that they wrap that with responsibility and owning the problem as well. And to be honest, I haven't had a lot of exposure. We do some work with Deakin University as well. And you give them coffee and they're off. It's fantastic. They've got all the ideas and no home loans, so they're really good to just push forward. But just make sure that they have an understanding of the consequences of some actions, and you're okay.
Next one's probably just sort of a very practical question. How do you handle migrating Word and Excel documents that make use of proprietary Microsoft technologies? Is it always a rebuild? These are all questions that are coming in.
Well, we made the decision not to mass transfer documents and to just keep them in native form, and people would convert them on the fly as they went. The only area where that wasn't true was a sort of precedent library around legal documents, but that's worked well for us. So, and it's true across all document formats. We've only sort of taken them across as and when we've needed to. We put a lot of time and effort into building templates and so on, so that they have the corporate look and feel associated with them beforehand. And it is different. You don't get 100% conversion of everything all the time. So you sort of got to go in managing expectations that you're not moving from one format to another and everything's going to be perfect. But we didn't. We decided not to convert and just to do it on the fly.
I'm just trying to remember. I think, as far as I recall, I don't think, I mean, it was 3 years ago now, I don't think we actually went through a program of converting them. I think we just did it on an individual basis, very, very similar to what Craig did.
For ours was diverse. We had Excel documents in manufacturing facilities, and if you tell a guy that makes 1 million boxes in 24 hours that he can't use this anymore, he'll get angry. Found it out personally. So it was somewhat of a case by case. I'd love to give an answer to someone or the people that asked it that it's just a simple thing, but it's not. Get in there, find out the reasons why, and what we found was it's about 70-80% was there's an application that is out there. It deals with that problem and more, and move to that. And so at the point in time, we said, you know what, that Excel document stays. So does your 2003 version of Office, because we can't upgrade it. So we're going to ring fence that, come back to it, and then deploy a much better cloud-enabled solution to fix that and every other problem in the manufacturing area that's centered around. And so sadly, it was spot fire. It was individual case by case only, and just listen, learn, and move.
I think the key thing is that you can still keep all of those, that repository in Drive and still apply all those controls of Drive on those documents in other formats, and that's fine. And then there is quite a lot of interoperability. We've invested heavily in that space, and you've seen a live example today. We had a set of PowerPoint slides come in from a speaker that have been converted. This whole day has been run on Google Slides, and there's a number of people that are around the room who are all in the slides now, who can all update them. I have it on this tablet, and I could change the slides on the fly now, and all it takes is just sort of one edit, and then we're live. There's no sort of cumbersome downloads, uploads, and everything's just sort of interoperable.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the point I'm trying to make is those examples were like Visual Basic macros, and attached to local file servers. Like, we're talking niche here. What we found was 98% of spreadsheets would go up, a little bit of formatting change. You got really good over the years as you progressed. And so it's a little bit of investment to make it look good, put the font in you like, change the colours, and then you're off. And then it changed. And so that example was, just those Visual Basic macros that were locally, we would move around.
Any other live questions before I go back? No hands up? A few shakes of the head? Craig, what do you see as the digital in marketing?
Well, I'm hoping that the word digital disappears from marketing, to be honest, in the next couple of years, because I think digital marketing is just another set of channels that didn't exist a few years ago and now do. I think that, if you're a marketer in a traditional enterprise, you're not really thinking about digital marketing. You've got a bunch of money that you can spend on traditional and new and emerging formats, and it's how do you get the best return on investment of all of that. The thing that most of the digital marketing tools do give you, though, which is really useful, is you're able to track and measure and monitor progress. And a lot of more traditional marketing forms, you're relying on surveys or feedback in order to get that. So if you're a marketer and you're trying to get a really precise lens on your return on investment, then you can do that with digital marketing tools much more than you can on, say, distribution of catalogues or free-to-air television campaigns. But I think that the notion of digital marketing will sort of disappear over the next couple of years, and it's just marketing.
There's a question here about probably at an ecosystem level, and that's around from Girls Invent, around how are your companies enabling innovation across all of your people, including women? I love it. How are your companies enabling innovation across all your people, including women?
Internally and externally. Do you want to answer for both?
Sure.
So look, this is something I'm reasonably passionate about. So overall, from a diversity perspective, in Xero, as far as IT companies go, we're actually we're going very well, but we could do more, and it's something that we are definitely very passionate about. The area where we do struggle is actually bringing females through the development area. That is a problem, and that's coming not from a wanting to hire perspective, but from an industry perspective. So it's something that we're really focused on. We're doing some work with Code for the Future at the moment. We do work with a coding for girls as well. So we're doing quite a bit in that space at the moment, and we really encourage our workforce to get actively involved in that. And what we've found is we've got a number of leaders who have come through the business. And I'm not talking about managers, but I think anyone has a capacity to be a leader if it's something they're really passionate about. So we allow them to embrace that and spend time out in the community actively working on things that they're passionate about. So that's the main area we're doing. We don't probably talk about it a lot publicly, apart from obviously today on stage, but it's something that we are very focused on.
I'm probably not the best to give an example because in my team, to be honest, individually, everything that we do doesn't have a gender to it. As far as what we do, and you come into my team, then we've just got work to do. And so individually targeting, I don't, because there's no gender. You're equal, which sounds amazingly patronising, I'm sorry. But it's just, when we've got work to do, you're part of the team, and let's go.
The question was a bit about innovation and also about sort of diversity, right? So I think in our case, we're, as I said, we've been through a big rationalisation of our product and services portfolio from sort of 30 down to 6 or 8. And I think one of the things about innovating is getting clear with your people on what it is that you stand for. You know, what is the big, hairy, audacious goal? What are you trying to do? Where do you see yourself being in 2 years, 3 years' time? So we've sort of got clear on that was the first step. We have a very diverse workforce, both in terms of sort of culture and gender across a number of countries. And what we're trying to do around innovation is, I think innovation happens best out in the field, as close to the customer as possible. And we're encouraging our teams to do that, but within a framework and within a set of product principles, if you like, as to where we're heading. And it's early days for us, but we're really starting to see some interesting things happen out close to the customer, where ideas are getting generated that then sort of get fed back into the whole product development cycle. And it's not gender specific, and it's not cultural specific either. It's, you know, and the great thing about the collaboration platform now is that teams can work on these things together regardless of where they happen to physically be located.
Back on the topic of security, what were some of the stumbling blocks around security that challenged the collaboration nature of the Google ecosystem?
I actually think we're a more secure environment now than we used to be. I mentioned before that we had sort of locked down our infrastructure to the lowest common denominator. So I live in Sydney, and when I would travel to our other offices, I had to get someone from my IT team to reconfigure my laptop because it wouldn't work in that local office. You know, I don't think we were a more secure company because we had those policies in place. It was just a legacy of the way that we had done things. And I think, you know, we heard from James before, I think, you know, our infrastructure partners are Google, Workday and Salesforce. And I think, and we do a lot of work with Amazon as well. I think each of those companies have far greater expertise and depth of experience in security than we could ever hope to have. And I'm not saying we've outsourced our security risk, but I think we are a more secure environment now because of our journey to the cloud rather than a less secure environment.
I might answer it slightly different. Given that we are born in the cloud and provide cloud solutions as a business, obviously security is paramount to everything that we do. So it's interesting, you know, three years ago when I started at Xero, the security discussion was something we had on a regular basis. So although we build solutions for small business, our distribution network is through accountants and bookkeepers. And accountants by their very nature, and I started my life as an accountant, are relatively conservative. So that's a pretty tough audience to talk to about security to begin with. The discussions I'm having about security are almost nil now. It really has disappeared. I completely agree. Actually, interesting enough, you talk about your suppliers. They're both our suppliers and our partners. We partner with these organisations to provide solutions to our end customers as well. And I would actually say collaborating on those together, we are far more secure than we would ever be if we were trying to look after things internally.
And for us, it's just being realistic about what is secure. I mean, the single greatest rise right now is the cryptoware viruses that will go out there, which will encrypt your spreadsheets and documents. And then you'll get a little message saying, pay us a bit of money, and then we'll decrypt it. This is a computerized system. There is no human behind this, and if you count down, your files are gone. In Google Drive, that's not a problem because it's not a file-based thing. So as far as security, there's many aspects. And so we share the belief we're more secure now being in Google than we were previously with old traditional file servers that we would have to maintain and back up and patch and make sure that we are doing our job properly. And normally that was a 2 or 3 or 4 man operation as opposed to the army that's looking after yours.
So I think just to wrap it up, I'm going to ask you just to close out with one last one, which is just for each of you, what do you see as the next big thing that you need to embrace? And who wants to kick off? Besides a mantra.
Well, I think for us it's a bit like Guy was talking about before. What is the next curve? And the question before around what is digital marketing? What is marketing in 3 to 5 years' time? How do you bring these sort of traditional and new and emerging channels together? And how do you do that in a way that is seamless and relevant? And so they're the things that sort of keep me awake at night. And I think having lived in Asia for the last 5 years and come back to Australia a couple of years ago. I think Australia's been sort of insulated to a degree from some of the competitive trends that have taken place in the rest of the world over the last decade or so. We've sort of missed the worst of the GFC, and then we had the resources boom. I think we've got a real opportunity to sort of step up now and innovate and compete aggressively, but we need to get cracking.
So probably the thing that probably keeps me awake most, or the thing that I think about the most is, working for Xero, I'm incredibly proud that we've actually proven you can build a global tech company from this part of the world. I think many people would tell you can't do that, and you have to go across to Silicon Valley. So what we're really passionate about is finding more of those. We actually want to make sure there's actually jobs for the next generation coming through. I'm very passionate. We can't keep digging stuff out of the ground forever. I'm sorry if there's someone from big mining companies here, but I'm pretty passionate about that. We have to actually ride this innovation curve. There's no reason we can't do that from this part of the world, and we should be really embracing that.
Okay. We're still partway through a journey. We're enabling our customers to order from us from a can all the way up to a 10-ton roll of paper online, 24/7. So we're in the middle of that roll. The next thing for us at BSG, there's many things, but the next thing for me is we've just reserved 300,000 IP addresses, and we're going to hook up every single monitoring device to every single part of our organisation to monitor everything that's made. So then we will have an insight into all the parts of our manufacturing facility and logistics trucks, and essentially have a nervous system to enable us to give insights back to our customers, the people that make the cans, the boxes, the PET, recycling, so they know what's going on within a second. And that's the big moonshot for us.
Great. Well, with that, so thank you, gentlemen. So I want to thank all of you as well for coming along and investing your time today with us. And I hope that you can take away, just at least you'll remember our mantra around being smart, modern and secure. Just the only follow-up I ask of you is that you'll hear from us and give us a bit of feedback and let us know what you took out of today and how we could make it even better for you when we're next down here doing an event. So with that, thank you everybody. Have a great day.